All right, let's start with a truly Chicago story. Today, the city council, they're all getting together, divvying up the cash, and there is they're sitting around talking today about the ride-sharing programs. Oh, everyone's so nuts, crazed about ride-sharing right now because the city hasn't figured out how they're going to make any money on this yet. And the rideshare companies who are using this technology, which is, it's a very cool technology, is, they're taking advantage of sort of the grassroots reality of economics in the digital era, in which you come up with a good idea and you just put it into play and it goes. Problem is the old school economy of big cities, rules, regulations, and the kinds of things that also happen in Chicago are intersecting with that, and right in the middle, coming up through the center, is the need, as we, the consumers, to be protected here.
Yeah, I'll tell you the biggest thing I've noticed, though, since Uber and Lyft and these things have come into the marketplace, you can actually get a cab when you call one. I mean, I don't know if you've gone through this before. I know we're in a time-sensitive business being broadcasters. I've so many, before they were in the market, I remember many times calling for a cab and they say 5 to 20 minutes or 10 to 30 minutes. And 45 minutes later, you would call and you wouldn't have a cab there. A lot of that's changing now because there's competition. And I think that's been really good.
All right. Well, Andrew MacDonald is the Midwest Regional General Manager for Uber. And you've been sitting in this committee meeting, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've spent the last 3 hours here just listening to folks talk.
Sounds so exciting.
Yeah, how's that
Those long meetings.
How's that going for you?
I could use a little more coffee, I think.
Yeah, they do that. I think they pump carbon monoxide actually into that chamber, just enough to keep you almost dead. And I don't know. Well, okay, so I guess this is the big question. I so wish, I have offered for years and years and years and years to be king of America, or king of Chicago. Just for like a couple of years, I'd fix everything and move on. And here's the thing I don't understand. You guys have, Uber specifically, you got great technology, you do a really nice job with the black car technology and the Uber cab technology. I think it works great. I don't understand the pure ride sharing stuff. You guys have UberX that does that. I don't know and Lyft. I'm not 100% sure I understand that, because I don't want some dude who, just decided he got a cell phone and called you to be able to, come pick up my family. I don't know if I like the idea of that. So how do we secure? I know that's what the city's looking to do here, and probably in a bigger way than you guys want. But what's the fair compromise there?
Well, I think it's important to understand that we share your concern for safety, and safety is our number one priority. So before sort of ruling UberX out of your transportation options, you should understand that we have industry-leading insurance that covers passengers while they're in a trip and covers drivers while they're providing service. And we run background checks, 3 levels of background checks, that's far in excess of what the city of Chicago does for taxi drivers. So from a safety point of view, these drivers are screened, and the insurance that's provided is far higher than the existing industry. So it's important to understand that.
All right. How long does it take? All right. Let's say Anna or I decided that we wanted to become UberX drivers. We got nice cars. We could do it.
I got a nice car. It's kind of a 2-seater, but I could make it work somehow.
I've seen that. I've seen that thing with the pink mustache show up in a Mustang. I'm like, I don't understand how people do that. But did you? So we got nice cars. We decided we want to become UberX drivers. What do we have to do?
Yeah, absolutely. You apply through our website. So we're a technology company. We try to do as much as possible virtually. But you provide us, you basically apply online, provide us with the type of information you'd expect: date of birth, driver's license number, social security number. At that point, you're then prompted to provide us with your documents, and you can do that online, or you can come to our office to do that.
And what documents? What do you need in the documents?
Driver's license, proof of social security number, proof of your personal insurance for your vehicle, so to prove that the vehicle you have has existing coverage.
Okay.
These types of things.
Do you have to bring the car in too? People look at the car?
Yes, we do. We do car inspections. At times we've done that virtually, so you can send in the right set of photos for us to inspect. The other way that cars are monitored, frankly, is you've used Uber before, it sounds like. You submit a rating at the end of each ride with comments. So to the extent that drivers have dirty cars or issues, their seats are ripped or whatever, we hear about it that way as well. So it's a feedback system that works with that regard. And then, the important thing is we run a background check based on the information you provide. It's a motor vehicle record check as well as a criminal background check. And we have very strict policies as to who can drive on the system, pending the results of those background checks.
I've done the ride-sharing thing. I've gotten in the car and I walk outside and there's a random guy with his random car, and it feels a little weird because initially, a woman just getting into a random guy's car feels a little weird instinctively. Mm-hmm. And then you get in and you're like, okay, it's just like a taxi ride, and that's okay too. I guess my question is, would you be okay if there was just a pure level playing field that you had to pay exactly what taxi cab drivers have to pay in terms of licensing fees and everything else? Is that fair to you? Is that a fair solution?
I mean, we're comfortable paying fees. I don't think our issues with the regulations as proposed are around what the fees are. We understand that the city has to run an enforcement mechanism, and the city, has to collect taxes to run their business. That's not the issue. The issue is when you're restricting the ability to let drivers do this. I mean, people are making a great earning doing this. You see things like at the state level, they're trying to require that if a driver were to go over 18 hours for one single week, so let's say St. Patrick's Day weekend, one of the weekends that needs most transportation in Chicago because everyone's out drinking. Mm-hmm. So you want to encourage as many cars on the road as possible. The state law would say if a driver drove 19 hours during that week, he can't be on the road anymore. He has to stop, go through a 2-month chauffeur's licensing process, because he spent an extra 5 hours on the road that weekend. So that's where these rules fall down for us, where you're like actually trying to restrict people's access to transportation versus just trying to make sure that the transportation is safe.
Well, isn't that a safety thing though?
Well, it's not unsafe for a driver to drive 19 hours in a week. Taxi drivers are allowed to drive 12 hours a day. So I agree that there's
a chauffeur's license, though, it's a different level of, of commitment to do that. I mean, because what you're doing, the difference. You know what? I got to take a quick break here. Andrew, can you hold on 1 second because I want to pick up on this because it's an important point, I think, of difference here. All right, Andrew MacDonald from Uber is with us, and right now there's a city committee hearing going on right now where people are half awake deciding the fate of this in the city of Chicago.
John Cass and Lauren Cohn, weekday mornings at 9. Right before Rush on Chicago's Talk Leader 89 WLS.
Okay, we're talking about the ride-sharing hearing they're having at the Chicago City Council, where they're all sitting up trying to figure out how to divide this guy's money. He's Andrew MacDonald, Uber Midwest General Manager, and I want to go back to this issue, Andrew, that we were kind of going down the road of once you have a situation where you've got a driver, right, who is trained and that has to get a chauffeur's license and has to go through a certain amount of testing to do what they do. And then the chauffeur's license changes the amount of, they can't have any alcohol when they're working, whereas somebody who's doing this like part-time, could have a beer as long as they're not over the limit, right? There are rule differentials there.
Yeah, to be clear, Uber and I believe the other ride-sharing companies as well have a zero-tolerance policy on drug and alcohol. Again, consumers are only going to be interested in using this product if it's safe. Our priority is safety for drivers and for consumers, and that's why our insurance goes above and beyond what the industry does. Our background checks go above and beyond what the industry does. Using Uber is just safer. I heard you guys use the example of, a woman getting into a ride-sharing car that might feel a little bit uncomfortable. The reality is taking a trip through the Uber platform is the safest way to get around. You have the driver's information. You have the driver's phone number. That trick is tracked through GPS. There's a record. So I don't know if you guys have ever had a bad Uber trip, but if you write in, it's going to be rectified by customer service. If you have an issue with the driver, say the driver swore at you, we could rectify that very quickly. whereas I'm not sure you're going to get that kind of service from a taxi company. So, just to be clear, like, rider safety is our priority because our business can't win without it.
All right, so you're willing to, I guess it's the chauffeur license. That's the big deal, right? I mean, that's the big differential between you guys. Obviously, your black car guys are all chauffeurs, right?
Yep, that's correct.
And the cab drivers that you guys also work for the regular Uber side, those guys all have those licenses because they're cab drivers.
Absolutely.
It's the part-timers, the people who are, going to spend 2 nights a week out on the streets in their car, making the car payment, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, these are people who maybe have just lost their job. Maybe they're people who work in the service industry. We have lots of bartenders and waiters. In LA, we have all kinds of part-time actors.
No. Shocked to hear that.
Me too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beautiful-looking UberX drivers in LA. I'll tell you that.
Must be very popular out there. Hey, I've seen some recent rulings though in other cities. I think Seattle comes to mind most recently, where they really are restricting Uber. They've come down and they've said, ride sharing has to be limited to 150 cars, or that's got to be. Those are real negative rulings, I would think, in your business to see that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it all boils down to what cities should be trying to do, and what cities and states should be trying to do is serve consumers, serve drivers who are earning a living. And restricting supply doesn't serve anyone except for protecting the existing taxi industry.
Andrew, you from Chicago?
I originally am not from Chicago. I'm actually originally from Toronto, but
that explains a lot
down here in Chicago.
Yeah, this is a town. The taxi cab industry in this town. Understanding a little bit of the history of it might have been helpful to you in terms of how this works. They're not just protecting tradition here. You know what I mean? You hear me, Andrew?
I hear you.
Hear what I'm saying? All right, get back in that meeting and see what you can do.
I'm sure it's super exciting.
Yeah, good luck to you back in there. All right, they slow walk his brain up and down the city council chamber.
I hope he gets paid enough to do that. Sit through those meetings and act like you care.
I mean, breaking up the taxi cabal and actually having, as lifers, we have taken cabs in this town and taken our lives into our own hands when you get in a cab. I mean, I have been in a cab where a guy's pulled out a sword and waved it out the window at another cab driver. Very Lawrence of Arabia. And I just don't understand, the city's contention that somehow it's going to be less safe. I don't think that they take incredibly pay great attention to what's happening at the letting of taxi licenses.
Absolutely not. I mean, service and safety right now, there are huge issues. We've all experienced them being in cabs. Of course, I've had so many drivers that yell at you and pull over. I mean, you know all the stunts they pull on the road, and you just don't feel like, oh my God, what are you doing?
Right.
It's obvious if you've been in a cab. So it seems to me, just on its face, the competition is good.
100% right. But on the same token, though, I don't want some guy who just decided I had a couple of beers. Go, I'm good enough. I'm going to get behind. But
can a taxi cab driver do that too? I mean, can't they do it?
Yeah, but they can lose their license. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that they won't ever drive a cab again. I see that happen all the time. But they can lose their license, and that's it. Or, a guy can give his phone over to somebody else. I mean, there's a lot of things that there does need to be more oversight in this to protect and make sure that those insurance rates and those insurance policies are as inclusive as they would be in any other way. That's all. And then then everybody, as long as if you're a public conveyance and you're responsible, you're getting paid to put somebody's keister in your back seat and deliver them from point A to point B safely, then there have to be some rules surrounding how you operate.
But you just get the sense, and you alluded to it earlier, Ro, that it's not really all about safety. It's not. There's a competition thing. There's an anti-competitive thread to this whole debate. That's just like, wow, hello.
Yeah. Hello. Well, I'm originally from Toronto. Oh, good. I can imagine that's what they were saying in the minute of that. Oh, good.
Thank goodness.
Good. You speak English?